guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Dice Sales Garage. On today's episode, I will be taking you through the steps of overhauling this. This is an MSD Pro Billet Distributor that came out of my 434 small block in my 63 Chevy Nova Super Sport. For those of you following our channel, you guys have probably seen the first video where I pulled the old intake off because I am replacing it. For those of you who are not following our channel, you should be. So if you just click over here, down in this corner, there is a subscribe button. Just over there, click on it and subscribe so you can see all of our old videos. You can also see all of our forthcoming videos easily. In the process of taking everything apart, I pulled this out, pulled the cap off of it, and found the insides of it were very rusty. What caused it, I have no idea. The car came from Arizona. Shouldn't have any rust in it. I thought I could sand the surfaces, sand the contact surfaces, clean them up. I did. They cleaned up okay, but I'm not satisfied. And again, if you start following our channel, you guys will learn I'm somewhat OCD. I like things to be as close to perfect as possible. Well, I'm just afraid these surfaces, since they have rusted previously, could continue to rust and continue to cause a problem. So I hopped online to jegs.com, and I don't always encourage people to shop online. If you have a local speed shop, please purchase all of your parts at local stores. Unfortunately, where I'm at, all of our speed shops have basically closed up. We have your standard O'Reilly's, AutoZone. They don't keep a lot of the things that I'm shopping for. So again, had to go online and order it from Jegs, but I ordered everything to rebuild everything in here. So I'm going to take you through the steps of taking this thing apart and replacing all of it. So follow along and hopefully I can teach you a thing or two. Okay guys, first thing I will show you is all the parts that I ordered in for this thing. First thing is a new cap, of course a new rotor, a new pickup coil, and a new reluctor. All these pieces, basically these are both external pieces here. These are the two internal pieces that I actually have to take it apart to replace. So follow along and I will take you through those steps. Okay, I went ahead and opened up everything so that everything's out of the packages so it's easily accessible. The first thing that we need to take a look at is the clocking of this plug. There is a black lead and a black lead that has a red stripe on it, and this plug has little ears on it to where it plugs into the other one, so we have to keep these in the same spot. So easiest thing I found to do that, grab your cell phone, take a picture of it. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. Okay, we have that picture taken. Now, since we are not going to keep this old pickup coil, and replacement coil has a new plug that comes in the kit, I'm just cutting it off. I'm just going to save the time and just cut it off. So, next thing is we're going to take the pickup coil out of the distributor. If you can see it, there are two Allen-headed bolts that come up from underneath, and they've got nuts on top here that hold this thing in. So hold tight and I'll take it off. Okay, I've got the bolts out. Now the next thing to do, I'm just going to pull it out of here. You can see it just lifts off of the surface. I'm going to pull these leads out. They're very tight. I'm just going to go ahead and set this aside. I'm not going to put the new one on until I have the reluctor changed out. That isn't as easy. To take it off, I've got to pull the whole shaft out of the distributor. And how we're going to do that, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a roll pin in this oil pump gear on the end of it. That has to be pressed out so I can pull this off, pull the shaft out, and replace this piece. So follow along and I'll show you how to take it out. Okay guys, apparently I had some camera issues as I was taking this apart, so I'm going to take you through the steps a second time here. This roll pin that was in this oil pump gear assembly, how I took it out was I set a socket under it and I took a small bolt from the top and I just tapped on it and was able to push it out, which then allowed this to slide off. I could go ahead and pull the shaft out of the distributor assembly. And then there was a circlip on the reluctor here that I had to take off also. Now the problem I'm having currently is that this reluctor is rusted onto the shaft. How this happened, I don't know, but anyway, it is. It's going to fight me some to come off, so I'm going to shut the camera off while I fight trying to take this thing off, then I'll be back. Okay, well, the reluctor is now off of the shaft. Kind of fought, but it's off. I ended up taking my handy dandy propane torch and some penetrating oil, heated up the reluctor, or I tried to apply all the heat to the reluctor as opposed to the shaft itself to try to get it to expand out, and also kind of to break the rust free. I then set it up in my vise kind of like this, and I took a punch then and punched in and was finally able to break it free so it would come off. Now, part of what was holding it in place so tightly, so I don't know if you can see this, right there it has a small roll pin, and there is a shaft, or on the shaft there's a groove in the shaft that after the reluctor is put on, there are slots in it too, and you shove that roll pin up in there, and that's what keeps it from turning. Now, you're seeing all this after I've cleaned it up. I took it over to the grinder, to the wire wheel, and cleaned everything up. But that's what was holding it up. So it's time now to start reassembling. Okay, first thing I need to do is to go ahead and slide the new reluctor onto this shaft. And it slides on very easily, how I expected the old one to come off, but unfortunately that didn't happen. So then the thing I need to do is I need to line up the slots in the reluctor to the groove that's on the shaft, and then stick that roll pin back in to hold everything in place, which could be fun. I need a pair of needle nose pliers. I will hold this thing hopefully in place. Okay guys, sorry for all the pauses and this thing is kind of fighting me, unfortunately. I came to find out that the slot in the new reluctor is not the same size as the slot that was in the old one, so this roll pin it would not fit in there. There's no way I could force it in there. So I ended up I have some small files, and I took a very small round file, and I came in here and I filed it out. I think it's going to fit a little easier. Let me file a little bit farther just to be sure, but I'm going to put some grease on it to hold the pin in place. As I push it on, then the thing I'm going to do, let me turn the camera just slightly here. I'm going to set this thing on my vise. I'm going to slide the reluctor onto it, get it lined up with the shaft, and hopefully it will just, I'll still, I'm sure, have to tap it on, but hopefully it goes a little easier. Starting out so good here, so let me try this again. Okay guys, after some strong persuasion, I was able to file this slot out far enough so that the roll pin would fit in. I got the reluctor put onto the shaft. It is now time to start to reassemble it. And the first thing I'm going to do, since I've had everything apart, I'm going to put just a thin layer of grease on this shaft prior to sliding it in. I'm going to use, this is actually L-Reg grease. It comes out of the power sports industry. Holds up to heat and condensation, all those things. So anyway, just real lightly grease this shaft. I'm going to slide it on in here. So I'm going to slide. Had a small spacer on there, so let me slide it on first. And there it goes. Okay, so now we have that reinstalled. Next thing I need to do is to reinstall the oil pump here onto it. And it had a couple shims on here also, kind of spacing it out. Slide those on first, then push it on. And try to line up the hole. So we can take our roll pin that we pushed out and put it back in. And I'm going to just kind of start to tap it in. And to finish pushing it in, I'm going to set it in my vise. And then just crank it in. Let the vise do all the work for you, and it's in, and we have, this part is reassembled. Okay, it's time for the final step in the process of overhauling this thing here, and that is to install the new pickup coil, which I have sitting here, and it's picking up everything because it's magnetic. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to feed these two leads through this grommet, and so it's easier. I'm just going to pull it out. I'm going to pull these leads that feed into our plug through here, and I'm going to go ahead and set this coil in here where it's supposed to be. And get the holes all lined up here. And the pickup coil came with new bolts and everything for it, so I'm going to slip them in here, perhaps. The holes aren't quite lined up. Probably hard to see because I have my fingers blocking your view, but I'm just going to stick these bolts back in here and stick the nuts on them. Then take my Allen wrench, my open end, and we're going to tighten them up, kind of like so. This one has to go on like this because it's up against the edge of the pickup coil, so it's got to go on the open end side. There we go. Those are on there nice and tight. Then I'm going to slip these leads back through this grommet, and we're going to shove this grommet back into the distributor housing. Pull them kind of tight here. And then I'm going to look at my picture on my phone of how these came apart. I've got that figured out. Look at my plug, and then we're going to push them in. These just push in and they just lock in. Now the problem with this is this one has a red and black and a purple and black, which are completely different than the other ones. So hopefully I'm putting them in how they should be. Okay, now then, I just found out as I turned the reluctor, it actually hits on my pickup coil. So I'm going to loosen the pickup coil back up, and I'm going to have to probably adjust it ever so slightly. So that there's some space in between for clearance. Pull this back. Now it clears. So let me tighten this back up. Hopefully it stays where it's threaded here. Before I tighten up this back one, yep, it turns free. Okay, the very last thing here is I'm going to put the rotor on here. And it sits on here. There's a round peg and a square peg. It's kind of like the old saying that you can't put a square peg in a round hole, and you can't. And so you just set the rotor on here and it just goes on. It's got two Phillips head screws that hold it on. So I'm just going to screw it on here. And MSD sends along a handy tool. I don't know if you can see this, but it is actually to check the height of the tang on the rotor. And so I checked that. I had to fold it up slightly so it would, obviously contact inside of the cap or have solid contact. So I checked that first. So now we're just going to finish putting this on, and then that will be the end of this assembly for this evening. After the intake is back on and the distributor goes back in the car, then I'll put the cap on it after I have everything timed as far as my initial timing goes. But anyhow, that is all for this evening. Okay, to wrap things up, I would like to say thanks for tuning in to another episode of Sales Garage. The next video that will be upcoming will be of me finally installing the intake onto my Chevy II and finishing this project up. Hopefully you found this video and all of our others educational, informative, entertaining, and if so, please click on the like and subscribe. And until the next time, this is Sales Garage, and I'm signing out.